So here's what my hope is for the day. This is what I hope will happen to you and to me. So my hope is that we'll see, by the end of the day, we'll see things a little bit differently. That's what my hope. And we'll leave here a little bit different. That's really what I'm hoping for today, okay? So let's do this for a second. I know you had a prayer before the breakfast, but just to settle ourselves, why don't we just take a minute of quiet time for ourselves. We'll take a leaf out of the Quaker book or whatever it is, and just take a quiet minute, and then we begin. Thank you. Okay, so that's lovely. It's just the energy. I was looking over the presentation yesterday that George did. He was talking about a sacred space, so just to bring that sacred space into the room. So the business we're in, everybody, we all know that this is a dangerous business. That if we don't get it right, people get hurt, more victims happen. And so it's really important that we get the work that we're doing right. So that's why I wanted to start the whole day off with a story. It's a true story of somebody that I believe got it right. And it begins in 1976 in a country called Bangladesh, 90% Muslim, 10% Hindu. And there's a young economics professor that year teaching economics in the university, which is located outside the city. So he drives to teach, and he's driving through the villages on his way to work, and he starts seeing people dying in the villages of starvation because there's a huge famine that year in the country. And he loves economics and he loves teaching, but he begins to question his whole system of economics. He says, what's happening here? My system of economics, it's helping people all over the world, but it's not helping the people in the villages. There's something wrong here. So he does something very interesting. He takes his students out of the university and they go into the village to see what's happening. And in the village, they speak to people and they find that everybody in the village knows how to work, knows how to live, knows how to have kids, knows how to educate, knows how to laugh, knows how to play music. They know how to do everything. But they're so desperately poor, they can't get a leg up to lift themselves out of poverty. So he reaches into his own pocket and takes out the equivalent of $27 and gives it to 42 women in the village who take the money, buy furniture making equipment, make furniture, sell the furniture, make a profit, pay him back his money, and they still have enough money left to start a business. And with that business, they lift themselves out of poverty. So that was Muhammad Yunus. He won the Nobel Peace Prize a couple of years ago. Many of you will have heard of him. And he started, with that experience, this whole new economic system of giving small microloans to people who lift themselves out of poverty. Now there are millions of people around the world using this economic system. It's a different economic system. So here's my question. My question is, what if we had a $27 solution for helping people to lift themselves out of crime? And it's my contention that we do have $27 solutions. We have a lot of them, but we're just not using them. So our task is to bring these $27 solutions into the field. So I'd like you to come on a journey. Let's all go on a journey. We've left the prisons, right? We're not in prison today. We get a break, right? We're in a nice hotel. It's really good. It's good to be with people. So we've gone on it. Let's go on a journey today and see where we can kind of get some renewal and look at things differently before we go back to work. So, look at this. What do I mean by $27 solutions, right? This is Muhammad's story. Well, if you listen to that story, the most important thing for me about the story is that Muhammad did this. He went on a personal journey and he saw things differently. He changed first. he was the catalyst. When he turned and he began to see things differently, then he was able to create a system that was more compassionate, more effective, and less costly. Let's take a look. More compassionate. The economic system before didn't care about the people in the village. Muhammad is working one-on-one with them. It's direct compassion. It's more effective because his system worked. The economic system was not working. People were not getting out of poverty. These people did get out of poverty, and clearly it was less costly, right? So for us, the question for me is this turn. What are we going to do to help us create a more compassionate, more effective, and less costly system? And I want to talk a little bit about that circle in the middle, because personal change, because there's one idea I want to put on the table, and it's this. There's a thing called adaptive change and technical change. And I want to make a distinction because during the day we'll be working on this distinction. So let me give you an example of technical change, right? In Oregon, where I worked, when I started working for the prison system, I think we had 8 prisons. And over the course of about 10 years, we went to having 14 prisons. So we had 8,000 people in prison, and now we have 14,000 and a half people in prison. Nothing compared to California, but it was a big jump for Oregon. So we built 6 prisons in the time that I was there. That's a huge change, right? But think about it, it was all technical change. Why? What do I mean by technical change? All it is this. We had a problem, we knew what it was, we knew there were more people coming into the prisons than we had beds for. And we were told by the governor, build more prisons because we were going to expand the prison system. Oh, okay, we know how to do that. We know how to run prisons. Give us the money. We started using the money. Who's the expert on building a prison? Who's the expert on running a prison? Who's the expert on doing all this? Okay, do it, do it, do it, do it. And we managed it. And we went through this huge change. But it was easy because we already knew how to do it, right? So that's a technical change. It's about technology. It's just about changing things. It's different, but you know how to do it. Adaptive change. Let me give you an example of an adaptive change. There's some talk today that the Canadians, give you the example with the Canadians. The Canadian Prison Service at the moment are preparing to run their prisons without solitary confinement, because they think in about 10 years' time, international law is going to outlaw solitary confinement as torture, right? So the Canadians follow international law. We don't tend to follow international law in America, but they do, right? So they're preparing to change. Now, can you imagine what our prison systems would have to go through if we were to run them without solitary confinement? Right? Everything about our system would have to change, wouldn't it? Because all our prisons, you know, they're all sent to, that's a whole system. How would we do that? How would we suddenly start running prisons without solitary confinement? What about the warden last night? If we asked him to run his prison without solitary, what would he do? You see, what expert can tell us how to do that? There's no expert can tell us how to do that. Because that's an adaptive change, adaptation. Here's an adaptation. You know, most animals have 5 fingers. We have 4 fingers and a thumb. We adapted, we changed, and now we can do all sorts of things because we had this adaptive change. So that's the kind of change I'm talking about when we talk about Muhammad Yunus, and I'm talking about us today. We're talking about adaptive change. And an expert can't tell you how to do adaptive change because it's only us. We can only do it ourselves. That's the big distinction between it. Okay. But it makes all the difference. What kind of change are we working with the men and women in prison on? Are they trying to make technical changes or adaptive changes in their lives? Adaptive, right? Because adaptive change, your whole life has to change to make the change, okay? So that's the distinction. You see, this is the truth. If we're trying to develop a new system and a better way of doing things, we have to change first. If we want a new system next year, and we're the same next year as we are today, we run the system. If we're the same next year as we are today, the system will be the same. If that warden and all of us, if we don't develop, our systems will not change. Thoreau knew it. He said this. Here's the Chinese. They know it. I mean, it's so simple, but it's really true, right? And when people see this type of a change, they respond. How many people around the world are responding to Pope Francis? Why? Because they see this in him. The institutional change is real because he demonstrates the possibility of personal change. And of course, here he is here. What is he doing? This was washing the feet of people who are in a correctional center, including women, including Muslims. Just a wonderful gesture, one of the first things he did when he became Pope. So this is the power of us, right? Not the power of technology, it's the power of us. Okay, so here's my question for you today to think about. What would be your one big thing? What would it be if you were to change something about yourself that you would like to be able to do? I wish I could be a better listener. I wish I could be more organized. I'm not a very organized person, but I really wish I could be organized. I'm a bit of a micromanager. I wish I could be freer. I wish I didn't have to micromanage everything. I don't know what it might be, right? I wish I could have more balance in my life. What would you like to be able to do that you're not currently able to do? And if you were able to do it, your ministry and your work would be much more effective, right? So I want you to think about that question. And then here's another question for us. What's our one big thing? What does chaplaincy need to change? Where do we need? And it's not like going from bad to good. It's going from good to better, right? Muhammad Yunus, his economic system was working for some, not for all. He changed it and made it work better for more people, right? So where do we need to go as a chaplaincy? Where do we need to develop to? They're the two questions, yourself and ourselves as chaplains. And today we're going to take a look at some skills for trying to uncover and help ourselves grow with those questions. So I said I wasn't going to talk too much, so now I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to ask Ahmed if he would come up. Ahmed is going to help me out here. And just for coming up, Ahmed, you get the ball. Come on, man. So this is very brave of Ahmed to do. Oh, you sit there, Ahmed. I'm going to sit here for a second. So here's what I want to do. Ahmed's going to help me out. And we took the podium down so hopefully you can see us. So we're going to have a little conversation. This is about the power of dialogue, and we're going to have a conversation together. And I'm going to draw a little picture and tell Ahmed about my background. I'll tell you something about my story, just my heritage, my ethnic background. And I'm going to tell you something I learned about growing up that I use today that makes a difference in my life. Ahmed's job is to listen to me. You listen to me. And then you tell me when I'm finished 2 things that you think are important to me. So all Ahmed has to do is listen and say, okay, Tom, I think there are 2 things important to you. Here's the first one, and tell me what it is, and here's the second one. And then you tell me something you like about me as a result of listening to my story. So then he tells me something about like. Then we're going to switch, and I'm going to ask Ahmed to draw a picture, and I'm going to ask you to do the same. And then I'm going to listen to him, because what I want you to do is when we're finished is you pair up with a partner and do exactly what we did, okay? So this is to bring us into the practice of dialogue. So, is that clear, Emmett? Am I clear?
I got it.
You got it?
Yeah,
Okay. All right. So has everybody got a piece of paper you can draw on? Because I'm going to ask it in a minute. Not now, but you can draw on in a minute. Okay. So I'm going to draw my picture, Emmett, and I'll tell you about it in a second. So let me see. I'll do it this way. Okay, so this is my story here. Can you see that, everybody? Let's put it back a bit. I hope you can get it, but I'll tell you the story. So my story is this. This is my grandfather. His name was Thomas, and he believed in education. And he died, though, when my dad was young. So he was ahead of his time because in those days he just lived in a little village in Ireland, and very few people were educated. There wasn't much education in Ireland. But he really believed in it, and he got my dad's older brother educated and my dad's older sister educated. But my dad here is named Thomas. I'm showing him crying because he had to leave school when my dad died when he was 9 years old, and he never got educated. And he always felt sad about that. But he passed on this value of education to us, and so myself and my brothers and sister, we're all educated, and it's meant a lot to me in education because I do value teaching. I just value learning. So it's really been an important thing for me in my life. And obviously then my name is Thomas, so I'm kind of proud of the heritage. It's all going back in Ireland. As far as we know, our heritage is from Ireland. I know I have a great-grandfather who is Italian, but that's as far back as I know. So here then is my daughter, Sorika. I can call her Thomas, so this is my little daughter here. So she's 13 at the moment. So she's kind of like a fun kid. She's energetic, and she's just started high school. So I guess I should really put a question mark around her. I don't know where she's going to end up with education or not, but at the moment it looks like she likes to learn. The thing for me growing up was this that I learned. My dad, to help get us educated, he moved us. We grew up in a working class area of Dublin, in the inner city of Dublin. So a blue-collar working class area. But he took us out of that and moved us into a middle class area because he wanted us to get education. Now that was a big change, to go from one way, like it was really working class, to a whole different. I had to work then with kids who were richer than me, and they were just different families. It was a whole different thing. That was a big change for me. But I learned how to go from the two cultures, and today I use that because I love working across all the different faiths and prisons. I love working in America. I love working in Ireland. I'm able to go between different cultures, and I think I learned that when I was growing up. Yeah, wait, no, I'll give you this. Testing, yes.
Good morning. Good morning.
Here, we do this. Oh, thanks.
Test. Good morning. I really appreciated you sharing with us this beautiful story. Looking to you with your sincerity about what you're talking, I have learned two things about you. One is you are a family man. Yeah, you're talking about your grandfather, your father, and you mentioned the tears of your father. I think that is still in your heart and touching you. And the other thing I have learned about you is education. You are in the go, no stopping. And this is like really touching me now, because I see the tears in your eyes. I'm sorry I have to mention this. And regarding your family and sincerity on that one, and just go back again to it. And you mentioned also your daughter, and seems like you are really, I don't want to concern you wishing the good for her, which is education. And as I go back to my second point, which is education. You know, there seems like there's no stop for education, and you are on the go. These two things I have learned from your.
Thank you. Something you like about me. Well, you've already said that, but something you like about me.
I like two things. One, I felt the sincerity in you. And the other one is just personal. I felt like you are a very nice man too.
Thank you. Thank you. Sure. Great job. Thank you. Yeah. Stay there for a second. A great job of listening. So this is what I'd like you to do now. I'm going to give Ahmed a chance to draw his story, and I'll give all you a chance to draw your story. And then I'll ask you to pair. But first of all, we'll listen to Ahmed's story, and I will tell him what I think is important. But let's all take a minute, and just it takes 1 minute to see what it does, and draw a little picture of your story. Okay, let's hear from Ahmed.
Okay, I'm not copying Tom. You know, I really love my dad too, and as everybody too. My father was, may Allah, God bless his soul, he was a very spiritual man. And he was, if I use the word, you know, maybe my Muslim imams would not like that. He was like a grand imam. And he was very spiritual. The community loved him so much with his fairness and justice, with he deal with the people. And if sometimes he has to come and pay from his pocket money for the people if have disagreement about business deal and whatever. And when I used to see that, I thought Mom, you know, would not appreciate that. You can say maybe she's not so happy, you know, because we can use the money at the home. And you know, those guys, you know, let them do their problems together. But she never complained about that, like at least in front of us. And she was very respectful to the grand imam. Then, you know, eventually I got married, and I grew up in my education from the beginning. I used to work a medical lab technician, and if you are working in the lab, everything has to be labeled, sessions, everything has to be, even a hair has to be in order, where you get it from and what's going on and what you're going to do with it, with the procedure, everything. And when I got married, you know, before that, when in a single life, I had to put everything in order. Excuse me, my socks has to be here. It cannot be there. I'm a lab man. My shoe has to be here. Because I don't want to be looking for my socks everywhere. I know that's the place, and this is the label. This is the biology. This is the chemistry. It is here, and it should be here. I need to know where and why, what's going on with it. Everything has to be documented. I married my wife from overseas. She's highly educated. Love her dearly. In the home, she is totally the opposite of me. What I mean, she's really organized, but not my way. And she moves the things around where I can, you know, I know the towels here in this cabinet, so I go for it. Where's the towels now? Then go find it somewhere. You need it, let me know, then I'll get it for you. Don't worry about it. And I'm not used to that one. So this took me a while, really, to know and adjust in that one, where I start asking, you know, I look, if it's not there, where is my such and such? Oh, okay, I'll get it for you. So she says, bring it to me. She's very organized, but in a way I don't understand it till now. So I take the shortcut. Wow. I look, it's not here where it is. Then either she tells me go get it, then or she bring it to me. So I'm happy with that one. And the way it goes now with my children, she is the teacher in the home. If I do thing, to teach them, no, you don't know how to teach them. Okay. So I say now I sit in the back seat, let her do it. And if she don't know something, she come to me, which I don't really know now. I don't know too much algebra now, pre-algebra, that one. So this is, basically, my story, which is, just recap it. Maybe I just went too many directions, loving my dad, the grand imam, and my mom, how she's loving him, and she never said anything to him till I got married, and everything just went in my wife's way. And the homework, it has to be her way. So finally I had to give up and just sit in the back seat and let her, I said, this is her home. I let her run the show.
Very good, very good. Well, Ahmed, that's wonderful story. So thank you very much for that. I would say two things are important to you. There's a lot you said, but the two things I would pick out are this. I think community and culture. I love the way you talked about your dad, but not only your dad, it was a whole community. It was a whole way of life and a whole set of interrelationships that were very important, the respect for this, the respect for that, and how people work together solving problems. So I think you have a deep appreciation for community and how community works. And the other thing I think is important to you is relationship. Even with your dad and your mom, you could see they had a way of working their relationship. And, they had their own way of doing it, but they did it like that. And I think you learn from their relationship, and you've even, with your own wife, worked out a different way of working out your relationship, but it's clearly really, really important to you. And that's what I like about you, is your adaptability. The fact, yeah. So even with the kids and everything like that, the relationship is so important to you that you're willing to kind of, whatever it takes, you're willing to work with it and make it work. And I really like that about you.
Thank you, that's true.
Okay. All right, folks. So thanks again to Ahmed, but yes. So just pair up with a partner, just pick a partner and do that exercise, and then we'll call back. And I'm going to remind you when to change, because sometimes people get carried away, they keep talking. So I'll give you just about 5 minutes each, and then you will switch. So so what was that like for people? It was what? Awesome. Okay, what else? Fun. Okay, great. Let's have some words. Awesome, fun. Revealing. Oh, revealing. I like it. Yes. Insightful. What else? Yes. What? Comparison. Very nice. Very interesting. Yes. Relational. Yes. Encouraging. Okay. Another word. Anybody else? What? Role model. Lovely. Yes. Thought-provoking. Look at these words. Look at this language. Yes. Bonding, right? Yes. Communication. Yes. History change. Exactly. I mean, it's amazing, right? Beautiful. Yes, sir. Self-awareness. Look at that. Learning. What? Learning? Yeah. Motivating. Sacrifice. Man, this is the best set of words I've ever heard. Yeah. Go ahead. Too short, right. I want more. Exactly. Anything? Okay. Challenging. Oh, Jacob. Vulnerable. Lovely. But Jacob has a 6-month-old baby. He knows what vulnerable is like, right? So, but look at that. This is what this is the power of dialogue, right? The power of dialogue. Just look at those. We just spent 10 minutes, well, I don't know what it was, 10 minutes maybe, And look how much power and how much growth and how much challenge and vulnerability, everything in the room. Extraordinary, extraordinary capability. And I think the power is in that listening part, right? We'll go into that the next session. It's the power of listening, because really at the heart of that exercise is your ability to hear each other. How many people felt heard by their partner? Right? Ahmed certainly got me, right? You could see he got me, and you feel heard, right? So how common is it to feel heard in life? It's uncommon, right? So it's not very common, but look how powerful it is. So I don't understand that so much. I don't understand why that happens. We're all able to do it. We just did it. And yet it doesn't happen so much in our culture. And I do think it's a cultural thing. I'm not sure. Ahmed, what country are you from? Yeah. Jordan. I wonder if it's a little bit different in Jordan, even just the way you listen to Ahmed's story. But I think there's something cultural going on, that we're all able to listen, but we don't use that skill very much. And when we use it, somebody said it's too short. When we use that skill of listening to people, what happens is people want to keep talking. They want to tell you more because they're working it out as they're talking, right? Ahmed did bring tears to my eyes because he touched a nerve with me about my dad that I hadn't realized before. It was around my dad's tears. And I'm going to keep working on that now because I didn't realize that. And he didn't tell me you should do that, but I'm going to do that myself because he heard me. And now I have something alive in me that will keep cooking. That's the power of dialogue to bring about this kind of change. So let's move it along a little bit, because this is what we were doing. Look at this. That's all it was. It was social learning. Yes, sir.
Can I ask you a question?
Please.
Sometimes when I'm listening, I have the urge to stop my partner that I'm listening to and add to his ideas.
Yeah.
I think this is what sways us away from the concentration. I mean, takes away our concentration.
Yeah.
That when you're listening to your partner and you want to add to or help him complete his ideas, and that cuts the concentration of listening. How do you fight that?
Yeah, did you hear that? I have the urge when I'm listening to people to stop them and add to the conversation and to take the conversation. I start interjecting myself into the conversation. And it's true, once you do that, you've stopped listening, right? And that's the power of listening. It's a hard thing to do. When I'm doing it, sometimes I have to sit on my hands. I sit on my hands as a reminder to myself to shut up, be quiet, right? Because it's physical. It's almost physical, the desire to jump in and to start fixing people and to start telling people what you think about they should do and to just start asking questions. Because once I ask a question, you need to ask questions, but it breaks the train of thought. If I ask you a question, the person has to go and get the answer. But I was talking about this. Okay, I'll get the answer for you. Now, can I get back to what I want to talk about? So it really is practice, that skill of not fixing.
When I'm listening to inmates, that's exactly what's happening to me.
Is that right?
You know,
Yeah.
When an inmate has so much to tell me.
Yeah.
Like you said, I need to be quiet, and sometimes I can't help it.
Well, that's a very important point. So let's come back to that during the day, okay? So I think we need to think about that. I remember you told us that story about giving up smoking, right? Yeah, and I've used that story many times. Okay. So, social learning, though, how we learn from each other. Did you hear Hamid's story? You hear my story? Look how much social learning is going on, right? All the time. It's how we learn. It's how we learn everything. Everything. So if I had one image for this is my image of what our work is about, right? It's just this beautiful image of the kid learning from somebody who's a role model. Somebody said role model. This is the power, this is the dynamism of what we bring to the table. So this is where we want to focus on for the day. And to help, right, let's take it out of a little bit of this face-to-face dialogue, but often, yes, a question?
Don't you think, as we listen, if we'll think about this, we're building up an account within, so that sooner or later they're going to stop and they're going to want to...
That's it. Beautiful. That's right. He said, if we listen enough, we build up an account, and then they'll stop because they're listening. They know we're listening, and then they will stop and ask you, well, what do you think? That's true. That's what happens. So if you can time it, it's like a dance. It's a dance, you know. When do I speak? When do I listen? When do I kind of interject? When do I let some person space? Because sometimes somebody's going on and on and on and on, and that's too much, right? So what you can do is you can let them know you're listening. You say, hey, hang on for a second. I want to make sure I got it. So you're telling me a couple of important things here. You're telling me about your childhood, and you're telling me about your family issues, and you're telling me about your drug issues, and you're telling me about you've been in prison a long time. That's a lot of stuff, right? But I get it. I understand. Which one of those would you like to focus on today? You see, that's how you do it, right? Because they're all over the map, and it's too much, and you've got maybe 10 minutes, right? So what can I help you with? But when you say, this is what's going on with you, they know you've listened to them. Great. Now, then you focus it. So that's the skill of the dance.
Just a comment. Sometimes I'll listen for a long time, and then I will simply say, did you want me to just listen, or did you want me to comment?
Okay.
Sometimes they don't want to hear what I have to say.
They don't.
just want to be heard.
Okay. Nice. Very nice. All right. I think we need to stay on this a bit longer. Yeah.
C.S. Lewis had a great line. He'd say, "You said many interesting things, but I'd like to comment on one."
C.S. Lewis said, you've said many interesting things, but I'd like to comment on one. Yes.
Also, sometimes like at
It's on.
I work at Atascadero State Hospital.
Yeah.
And we have numerous patients that we deal with. And sometimes they come to you often. And so you get to know them. And usually when they come in and they begin to talk, and if you can recall something that they said before,
Yep.
then they realize that, oh, you
really listened to me.
you were listening.
Yeah.
You know, it might be a week back, but
Yeah.
that's when you know that you are listening, when you can recall something maybe
Yeah.
a week that or a month
Yep.
afterwards. So,
Lovely,
and
lovely.
they really like that.
They do. It's important. It's the relationship stuff that Ahmed was talking about. So let me put this model up for you, because a lot of our work is, I was talking to someone there this morning and said, oh, you know, it's great, I'm doing well, but I have to work with the warden, I have to work with everybody in the prison, so we've got all this dialogue stuff going on. Here's a very simple model of dialogue that I want us to take a look at. Very, very simple. It takes a couple of minutes to do it. But when you are at a meeting or with a group of people, there are 4 things that are going to happen in the meeting, and that's all that's going to happen. First of all, somebody's going to make a move. Hey, let's go to McDonald's. That's a move, right? It's putting forward an idea that's driving momentum for the group. After the move, you have somebody who'll follow. Hey, I like that idea. I'm hungry. That's a great idea. Let's do that, right? So you have people move and people who follow in a group. But you need other voices. You need also this voice. You need the opposer in the room, because the opposer will say, hey guys, it's a nice idea. I'm hungry as well, so I'm with you on that. But we've been in McDonald's for the last 2 weeks every day, and I'm beginning to get sick, right? We're missing something here. We need to do something different. And I'm going to propose that we go home and we cook ourselves a meal today, something, you see? So the opposer The person who opposes understands what's missing from the conversation and will point out there's something missing. Because movers and followers, they kind of tend to really like each other. Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, let's do that. And there they are heading over the cliff together. Right? So if you don't get an opposer into the room, you don't have a full conversation. Now, what do we do with opposers normally? Try and push them out because we think they're not a team player, right? But in fact, we really need people who can oppose, right? So this model, though, is trying to build a container because opposers can cause a lot of trouble, right? It can get very conflicted. But if you have a dialogue container that's capable of holding all the different opinions, it's fine. Because everybody's safe and we, okay, that's an oppose. We don't have to do it just because you oppose, but we'll certainly listen to it because we need the correction. Yeah, Musha.
I always appreciate this type of model, and I know, what your approach is and what our ideal approach is. Whenever I look though at something like this, and you mentioned the wardens and all this, the unfortunate fact is that for many of us, this kind of a dialogue discussion never takes place.
Yes.
It's always top down. It's always an administrator, or in the case of the prisons, obviously a warden or even an officer with less education than us. There's no give and take. And I agree with everything you're saying, and the ideal is there. Even among the chaplains, I wonder how many of us have the time or will make the time
Nice.
to have a dialogue. Well, what should we do about this issue? Because everybody's out. Unfortunately, we live in a very competitive,
Very nice.
difficult environment.
Okay. Did you catch it? Did you catch it? What's Musha saying to me? He's saying, well, Tom, it's a nice model, it works, but what you're missing is this, right? No, it's perfect, right? It's perfect because now you're after opening it up into the real world. So let's move into that because that's really, really important. How does this work in practice, right? So we're going to get there. Before that, let me put the last voice up. There's one more voice. It's called a bystander. Now, don't get fooled by the word, but the bystander doesn't mean bystanding, but how many times have you been at a meeting where there's 3 or 4 people talking, but there's 10 people in the room and 6 people are not, right? That's very common, right? Now, a lot of you are more introverted, right? And if you're at meetings, you may tend to be quieter because, the extroverts are out there doing what they're doing. They're talking, right? But the introverts, they're the people who can be more of the bystander. They're watching. It's not that they're not involved. They see everything that's going on in the meeting. And they have perspective, right? So Magic Johnson apparently was a great bystander. Because here's what magic came from. He would be able to move the ball. He would be able to follow the ball. And he would be able to oppose. But where his magic came from was he had a view of the whole game. He would see what was happening in the game. And he would say, hey guys, you see what's happening on the court? This is what's happening. So we need to switch it this way. He would bring the perspective. So bystanders, you need them for perspective, but they're often quiet at meetings, so you have to bring them into the meeting. Because if you're quiet, you're a disabled bystander. You're not an active bystander, okay? So these 4 players or 4 voices in it gives momentum, gives completion, gives correction, gives perspective. Let me move into Musha's point about the real world. This was a team I worked with in Yamhill County, made up of a judge, a sheriff, community corrections director, a jail commander, a commissioner, a citizen, victims advocate. They were all working together for 2 years on a vision for their county on criminal justice. They were doing great work, but they were stuck. And they asked me to come and see what was going on and work with them a little bit because they were burnt out. It wasn't happening. They'd been working hard for 2 years on this great vision that they had, and nothing was happening. So we did an analysis of them. I did a work with them. I wanted to see which one did they prefer to do. And I attended their meetings and I observed what was going on. I got them to take a little assessment. Here's what happened. There was 11 people on the team. How many were movers, followers, opposers, and bystanders? right? This is what it was like. We had 8 movers in the room and 3 bystanders, and the bystanders were disabled because the movers were taking up all the space, the bystanders were sitting there quiet. What happened in that meeting was, in 10 minutes, you'd have 6 ideas on the table, right? So they weren't opposing each other. The judge would say, this is what we need to do. The sheriff would say, we need to go here. The DA would say, we need to go here. And they'd have 6 different ideas on the table, and they'd no following. Nobody knew how to follow and say, I've heard many things that are good, but which one will I focus on? You see, nobody was able to follow in that meeting and say, we've got 10 ideas on the table and we're not getting anywhere with them. Which one are we going to finish today? Once the bystander said that, everybody would catch themselves and say, oh yeah, you're right. And now they've finished up a bunch of things, and in each of the areas that they're working on, they're not burnt out anymore, they're going. Right? That's what's happened with that team. They're alive and they're active because around the table you had all the skill that was needed, but they didn't have good dialogue skills. They needed to get that and develop that. Okay? So, here's what I would like you to do. Yes?
So the bystanders actually
George.
create followers?
The bystanders what?
Actually help to create followers.
In what way now?
Well, they
Can you just pass those?
said we're not getting anywhere, now we need to do something about this. So eventually people follow on.
Yeah, that's what happened in that time. Because the bystanders bystanded about what was going on, then they helped people to be following. But in a different meeting, it could be a different bystand and something else would happen. But you're exactly right. They brought in the bystanding, or they brought in the following, exactly. And that's what was needed for that team. I'm giving you out a sheet of paper, and I'm going to ask you to fill it out. And all it is asking you, here's moving, following, opposing, and bystanding. Take a look at the sheet of paper and try and give yourself a percentage for which one of these you do the most. Do you spend your time moving 50% of the time or 10% of the time? What about opposing? Do you oppose a lot or do you oppose not much at all? Right? Mush is going to be a 0 on opposing. Right? 0%. Right? So take a look and fill that out for a second. It'll take you 1 second. And then what I want you to do, we're going to, at your table, start talking with each other about your own style, right? And listen to each other, but have a conversation with each other about what's going on in that page. Here's a good question. What's the context? What's the context? Are you talking about when I'm at home or when I'm at work, when I'm with my kids? Let's talk about the context of when you're at work and with your colleagues. Let's put it into that context, because you are different in different contexts. That's a great point. So let's focus it around your work as you work. Yes, sir. Here's what I want you to do at each table. Just first of all, notice, right? Take a look around the table and see what the makeup is, right? Just share with each other what you said. Give each other 30 seconds to share your sheet, and then see what you think it means if you were a group of people at work talking together. So just kick it around. We've just got 10 minutes before we take the break, so I just want you to start kicking this around a little bit. I'll call you back in 5 minutes.